Hey everybody, it is Julie and welcome back to Pages and Pens. I am here with a book review slash series review, and I will be reviewing Maggie Stiefvater's The Raven Cycle. This will be a non-spoilery review. The Raven Cycle is a 4-book series and it follows Blue Sargent, who is not a psychic but comes from a family of psychics, or lives in a household of psychics, and has been told that if she kisses her true love will die. So she has kind of lived with this knowledge all of her life, and her particular psychic ability is that she magnifies other people's psychic abilities. So she kind of acts as an amplifier for other people's psychic abilities, which is great for her mother and her aunts and the women that live in her house that do psychic readings, etc. The other part of this story is Gansey, Richard Gansey III, and his troop of guy friends from a private school in the town that Blue lives in. The long and short of it is she starts hanging out with these boys from the private school, and Richard Gansey III is on this lifelong mission to find a lost Welsh king. Welsh king? I think he's Welsh. And he's sleeping or buried or somewhere along this ley line, this magical line that runs through the town that Blue lives in. So it follows both groups of people until both groups kind of converge in this series and goes through all of their trials and tribulations, and there is magical realism in it. So first up in the series is the Raven Boys, and this introduces all of the characters. And when I say introduces, I mean introduces them all in like the first chapter. I struggled with this book. First of all, in general, the series is slow to build, but this book in particular introduced everybody so quickly that before you got to know anybody, all the names were being thrown out, backstories were being thrown out, and following one and linking one to another was really hard. So you'd get a backstory, you'd get a name, you'd get another name, you'd get another backstory, and you didn't know whose backstory went with whose name. It was very confusing for me right off the bat. By the end of the book, that did get better and things got sorted out, but it was still a very, very slow build to any kind of action in this book. All in all, I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. It was pretty difficult to get into on a whole and didn't really endear me to any of the characters in particular. Next up is The Dream Thieves, and this was book 2 in the Raven Cycle. Again, obviously Maggie Stiefvater. This one I gave 4 out of 5 stars. Out of all of the books, I think this was probably my favorite. I really enjoyed this book, which followed Ronan in particular. So the gang of boys, and I don't think I can ever pronounce this, but from the private school, Aglionby. I'll never get it right, guys, so I'm not gonna say it. But the Raven Boys, we'll just call them. Richard Gansey III, Ronan Lynch, Adam Parrish, and Noah something crazy. But this one particularly follows Ronan for the majority of the story, and his story was really, really intriguing to me. I really, really enjoyed it. So that's what made this one a lot easier to follow. Plus, action did kind of pick up in certain aspects, and character relationships started to evolve to a much more mature, in-depth place. But in general, the way that the book series is told is it does kind of alter narrator from chapter to chapter, but the majority of this did circle around Ronan and his particular emerging magical abilities, and I really, really did enjoy this book. Out of all of them, the backstories of the characters start to come together, and it's kind of the first time in the series that I found myself caring about certain characters. Although I've got to say that Blue and Gansey are supposed to be kind of the main characters in this book series, I think, and they ended up kind of being my least favorite overall. So this one's where I fell in love with Ronan. Then we have Blue Lily, Lily Blue. This is the 3rd book of the series, and this one was not great. Again, I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. To me, it was almost a throwaway. I think things that happened in this book could have been condensed into one of the other 2, either prior or post. The main part of this book was centered around Gansey and his family and their political entrapments, and also on one of Gansey's old mentors kind of coming back into town. Let's just say that I hoped, based on this book and how much time was spent on those side stories, that they would play a larger part in the book and in the series as a whole, and they didn't. So for me, this book was pretty lacking, and I found myself not thinking it was worth it. So that's that. And last up is the Raven King, and this is the wrap up. This is the end of the series as a whole. This is book 4, and it was not fantastic. Yeah, I don't know. I did marathon these, so I read them all back to back to back, and I didn't have to wait for them. If I had been somebody who had waited a long time to read this and had been invested in the series from the beginning, I probably would have been really ticked off. Because I could have gone, I did go straight through, it wasn't as bad, but without any spoilers, it just did not end in a satisfying way for somebody who invested time in the story. There was a couple twists, there were some, you know, plot points that changed that I didn't see coming, a couple that I did see coming. There were relationship developments that I loved in this book. At the end of things, I did shed a couple tears. I did stay invested in the characters through the end after starting to care for them in the second book, but all in all, I was not satisfied with the way that the series ended, the way that their quest kind of came to an end, and in general kind of felt like an easy way was taken out at the end. But I will give it 4 out of 5 stars. I'm glad that I read it, and there were some character developments and relationship developments in this book in particular that made the series worth it for me, that really endeared me to secondary characters. I'm going to put that in air quotes, like secondary characters, not Blue and Gansey really in particular, but to other characters specifically, that made this worth reading for me. There was an introduction of a character as a more major player in this book that I didn't feel was necessary this far into the series. So that I questioned, and I know a lot of other readers probably would have too. There was one of like my favorite quotes in this book that I did bookmark. I'm not going to read it because it's towards the end and it could be kind of spoilery, but if you are interested in what it is, let me know. If you're interested in what the quote is that I bookmarked that I thought was so memorable and kind of stuck with me, leave me a comment below and I'll do some ... and then leave the quote for you. That way, if you don't mind being spoiled, or if you've already read the book series and you're wondering what it is, I'll put it down there for you. But otherwise, I'm not going to share it. That's my review. Out of all, I'd probably give this series a 3.5 out of 4 stars. A couple of the books were 4 stars, but in general, not my favorite YA series. Hey everybody, I wanted to stop really quick because I was editing footage for my Raven cycle, and I realized that my footage cut pretty short. So I wanted to just let you guys know that I really did, I mean, I enjoyed the series, but I'm not running out to tell everybody that they need to go and read it. But I'm not sad that I read it. And if you have read it or you have any thoughts or comments about the series, go ahead and leave them down below. I know a lot of people really love it, and I'm not knocking it. It just kind of wasn't my favorite. But I would love to hear your thoughts on the individual books or the series as a whole down below in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up and click the subscribe button, and I'll see you in my next video.